Don't waste my time. I'll do what I must. Of course. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. I'll do what I must. Of course. You have an idea. None can approach me. Right. By any means necessary. Of course. Right. How will this benefit me? By any means necessary. Of course. I await your counsel. Stay out of my way. I'll do what I must. Of course. By any means necessary. Of course. I'll do what I must. Right. Of course. Right. By any means necessary. Right. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Of course. I'll do what I must. By any means necessary. Of course. Stay out of my way. I'll do what I must. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Right. By any means necessary. Right. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Right. Stay out of my way. Right. Of course. I'll do what I must. Of course. How will this benefit me? Right. You have an idea. By any means necessary. How will this benefit me? By any means necessary. Of course. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. Of course. Right. Of course. Stay out of my way. I'll do what I must. Of course. Vanquish the weak. Stay out of my way. Right. Of course. Stay out of my way. I'll do what I must. Of course. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Stay out of my Stay out of my way. Right. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Right. I do what I must. Right. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. I do what I must. Of course. Right. Stay out of my way. Right. By any means necessary. Of course. Right. I do what I must. Right. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. I do what I must. Right. Of course. Stay out of my way. Of course. You call on me. Stay out of my way. I do what I must. Stay out of my way. I do what I must. Of course. I do what I must. By any means necessary. Wake up, time to die. I do what I must. Of course. Right. I do what I must. Of course. I do what I must. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. This one is mine. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Vanquish the weak. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. I do what I must. Of course. I do what I must. Of course. Wake up, time to die. This one is mine. Wake up, time to die. I do what I must. Of course. Right. Of course. Stay out of my way. Nobody can oppose me. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Wake up, time to die. By any means necessary. I do what I must. Right. I do what I must. Stay out of my way. Right. By any means necessary. Right. By any means necessary. Of course. By any means necessary. Right. I do what I must. This one is mine. Right. I do what I must. Stay out of my way. Right. Of course. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. I do what I must. By any means necessary. I do what I must. Stay out of my way. Of course. I do what I must. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Right. Of course. Right. Of course. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Right. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Of course. I await your counsel. Right. Of course. Wake up, time to die. Right. Stay out of my do what I must. Right. Of course. Right. By any means necessary. How will this benefit me? Right. Stay out of my way. I'll do what I must. By any means necessary. Right. Stay. I'll do what I must. Of course. Stay out of my way. Right. Stay out of my way. I await your counsel. Of course. By any means necessary. I'll do what I must. Of course. Stay out of my way. Right. Stay out of my way. By any Right. Of course. Stay out of my way. Right. Of course. Necessary. Right. Stay out of my way. I'll do what I must. By any means necessary. Right. We come time to time.
靠腰啊！好，快走，快走，快走！转移大法。
I'll do what I must. Right. Of course. You have an idea. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Of course. Stay out of my way. Right. I'll do what I must. Of course. You call on me. You have an idea. I'll do what I must. By any means necessary. Right. No one can oppose me. By any means necessary. I'll do what I must. Of course. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. Of course. Right. Stay out of my way. Right. Of course. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Don't waste my time. You call on me.
What?
Don't waste my time. You call on me. Don't waste my time. By any means necessary. Right. By any means necessary. Of course. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Of course. Stay out of my way. Of course. Stay out of my way.
没人了，不好跑。 靠！我今天手感怎么烂成这样？哇！完了，这场真的完蛋。
I'll do what I must.
เขามีประเด็น A
By any means necessary. I await your counsel. Right. By any means necessary. I'll do what I must.
เฮ้ย大哥
Stay out of my way. Right. I'll do what I must. By any means necessary. How will this benefit me? Right. Of course. I'll do what I must. Of course. By any means necessary. I'll do what I must. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Right. I await your counsel. By any means necessary. You have an idea. I'll do what I must. Of course. Stay out of my way. Right. Of course. Don't waste my time. Of course. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. None can oppose me. I await your counsel. You call on me. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. Of course. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Of course. Stay out of my way. Right. Of course. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. I'll do what I must. Of course. Right. I'll do what I must. Of course. By any means necessary. Of course. Right. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Of course. By any means necessary. Of course. Stay out of my way. Right. Stay out of my way. Don't waste my time. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Necessary. I'll do what I must. Right. Vanquish the weak. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. Of course. Right. You have an idea. Stay out of my way. This one is mine. Of course. None knows me. Right. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Of course. By any means necessary. Right. I'll do what I must. Of course. Right.
到。 大招。
Stay out of my way. Of course. Right. I'll do what I must. Right. Of course. By any means necessary. Right. Of course. I'll do what I must. Right. By any means necessary.
石头歪掉了。嗯，我自己闪进去里面。哎，你卡住了！哎，不会吧？拉走一个，这样还打不赢呢。
Stay out of my way. I'll do what I must. Right. Of course. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Of course. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Of course. Stay out of my way. Of course. Stay out of my way. Of course. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. Of course. By any means necessary. Right. Of course. Right. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way.
哼，勾到头发。
By any means necessary. I'll do what I must. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Right. Of course. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. I'll do what I must. Right. By any means necessary. I'll do what I must. Of course. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way. Right. For the magazine. Stay out of my way. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. Of course. I'll do what I must. Stay out of my way. Of course. I'll do what I must. By any means necessary.
哇，因为打的精彩的时候变这样。
Stay out of my way.
Inventory is full. Hi! I'm game. Gladly. For the truth. I'm game. For the truth. I'm game.
You call on me.
What is nature's call?
You have an idea. I await your counsel. Of course. I'll do what I must.
Are we being invaded?
You call on me. Of course.
Hi!
Don't waste my time. I await your counsel. How will this benefit me? Stay out of my way. Right.
Is there trouble?
You have an idea. I'll do what I must. Right. I'll do what I must. Right. Of course.
What is nature's call?
You call on me.
Hi!
How will this benefit me? I'll do what I must. By any means necessary.
哇，出血流里。
My way. I do what I must.
What is nature's call?
Call on me. Right. By any means necessary. I'll do what I must. Right.
Is there trouble? Hi!
You call on me. By any means necessary. Of course.
What is nature's call?
How will this benefit me? You call on me?
Are
Right.
we being invaded? Making change.
How will this benefit me? By
What
any
is nature's
means
call?
necessary. I'll do what I must. By any means necessary.
Hi!
You call on me?
Are we being invaded? Gladly. Making change. I'm game.
Stay out of my way. I'll do what I must.
Hi!
This benefit me. Right. By any means necessary. Stay out of my way.
哦，哎 ，SK 救勾一下，哇！嘿嘿嘿。
What is nature's call? Hi!
Necessary.
哎，刚好中间。
Right. Of course. I do what I must. Stay out of my way. By any means necessary. Right. By any means necessary. I do what I must. Of course. You call on me. Right. Stay out of my way.
Are we being invaded?
How will this benefit me? You call on me. I await your counsel. Right. How will this benefit me? Stay out of my way. You have an idea. Right. Of course. I await your counsel. Right. Of course. Right.
Hi!
By any means necessary. Right. Of course.
哎，他怎么卡这里？
Don't waste my time. Triple kill. This benefits me. Stay ultra kill. Monster kill.
看 看那许光那个石头，这他妈卡针，他卡我们自己人。哦，没有。卡西漏跑了，没有，火海漏跑了。
For honor. Is there danger? For honor. Of course. I stand for the light. For honor. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Feel my wrath. Of course. You are past redemption. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. I'm here to help. Feel my wrath. Betrayal. A sound plan. Is there danger? Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Of course. I stand for the light. For honor. Certainly. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. The light is my strength. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Feel my wrath. For Lordaeron. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. I'm here to help. For honor. Of course. Certainly. Of course. For honor. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly.
打不打死？
Of course.
打不死。
The light is my strength. Justice. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. I stand for the light. I'm here to help. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Of course. Certainly. I stand for the light. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Light. Of course. Prayer of the light. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Feel my wrath. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Certainly.
太油。
A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. For honor. Certainly. Feel my wrath. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Justice. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Betrayal of light. Of course. For honor. Foul. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. Light is my strength. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Sound plan. Is there danger? Certainly.
Is there
Trail of light. I'm here to help. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. I stand for the light. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Feel my wrath. For honor. Justice shall be done. Certainly. I'm here to help.
Oh，暴击！
Danger. I stand for the light. Sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. A
大
sound
招，大招！
A sound plan. Of course. Justice shall be done. A sound plan. A sound plan. For Lord Aron. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Justice. Of course. For honor. Certainly. For honor. You are past redemption. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Justice. You are past redemption. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Prayer of light. Of course. For honor. Bound. Of course. For honor. I stand for the light. Certainly.
他怎么在那里？
For honor. Of course. A sound. Certainly.
没了没了。
A sound. Of course. Certainly. Prayer of light. A sound. For honor. Justice shall be done. Of course. For honor.
哇，ACK 你怎么才7等？
Stand for the light. Of course. Certainly. I'm here to help. Of course. A sound plan. Is there danger? I stand for the light. Of course. I'm here to help. Sound. Certainly. For honor. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly.
哦，这么快？
Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. Of course. For honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. Of course. A sound Of course. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. I stand for the light. Of course. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. The light is my strength. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. Of course.
你这白痴！
Certainly. A sound plan. I stand for the light. The light is my strength. Certainly. Of course. Certainly.
很多哦，快跑，快走哦！
Certainly. A sound. For honor. A sound. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor. Certainly. Justice shall be done. Of course. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For order. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. For honor. A sound. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. Here to help. Justice. I'm here to help. Of course. I stand for the light. A sound plan. Of course. Justice shall be done. The light is my strength. I'm here to help. Justice shall be for honor.
哦，够钱了，100、800块，那算了。英雄联盟前身，确实如此。
Certainly. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Justice has come. A sound plan. Certainly. Light is my strength. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Feel my wrath. A sound plan. For my father, the king. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Of course. Bound. Justice. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. I'm here to help. Justice shall be done. A sound plan.
有人倒了。
Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor.
看不到，算了，没视野。
Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor.
都备水。
Of course. The light is my strength. I stand for the light. Is there danger? Sound plan. Stand for the light. Certainly. Sound for honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound for honor. A sound of course. For honor. Of course. Certainly. A sound
I will honor our pact. By Ashara, I will honor our pact as you wish.
for honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. sound plan. For my father, the king. Of course. Is there danger? For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Justice shall be done. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. For honor. A sound plan.
Hey!
For honor. Stand for the light. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Justice shall be done. For Lord Ron. Feel my wrath. Of course. A sound plan. I stand for the light. You are passionate. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. For honor. Of course.
아타?
A
동사예요.
sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. Justice shall be done. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. A sound for honor. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For my father, the king. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. I'm here to help. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. You are past me. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Feel my wrath. A sound plan. Justice. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Justice shall be done. A sound plan. Certainly. Is there danger? A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. Of course.
3.7
For
哦，
honor.
那已经年代很久远了。
Certainly. For honor. Justice shall be done. A sound plan.
966，
Certainly.
哎，
Of course. I'm here to help. What is it? work? Yes, my lord. Off I go then. I'm here to help. Easy. I stand for the light. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. For
哇，不放弃啊！
certainly. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course.
哎，你没抹了。
Justice shall be done. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Of course. I'm here to help. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. A sound. For honor.
4个
Of
人。
course. For honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound. Certainly.
照料料。 For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. 哦，应该有眼睛哦。
Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan.
哦，这边吧。
For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor.
哎哎哎！看 ACK 这场是什么？是什么意思啊？
我
完了，这一阵没震到，这样整个崩盘。
stand for the light. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. I stand for honor. Of course. For honor. The light is my strength. Is there danger? Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. I'm here to help. Of course. For honor. Easy. Is there danger? A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. Bow to me. Traitor. Feel my wrath. A sound plan. Justice is of course. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan.
时太少了，还没办法出
For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. Is there danger? For honor. Of course. I stand for the light. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. I'm committed. Certainly. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor.
I am Shara, a reliance.
A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. Of course. For honor. Certainly. I stand for honor. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Justice shall be done. The light of destruction. Feel my wrath. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly.
会不会死的？真的没魔了。这样是还有吗？猫匪不见了。这个时候，阿川，你要不要再一局？ 哦，2点了。这种深夜时候，啊，我想到了。10分钟。 好吧，阿川，你可以热身了。每次小鸟开局，感觉都会翻车。
Let go. Okay. Yeah. Get on with it. Who smashed you? Okay. Yeah. What you looking at? Let go. Get on with it. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
孙策曹丕吕布鲁师乐音。鞋子。
First blood. I go.
靠打野位过我了。走喽！Get on with it. I go. Huh? Yeah. I go. I'll go. Hey! 兄弟阋墙。I go. What you looking at? Okay. I go. Okay. I go. Ah! I go. Okay. I go. Smash you. Kill. Smash you. I go. Ah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What you need? Okay. Okay. Huh? It.
Okay. I go. Okay. I go. Smash you. Get on with it. Okay. Yeah. Smash you. Yeah. Okay. Let go. Okay. Let go. Okay. Let go. Yeah. Let go. Yeah. Okay. Smash you. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Me smash you. Okay. Okay. Let go. Let go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Me smash you. Okay. Let go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let go.
谢谢。
Yeah. Let go. Smash you. Yeah. Let go. Yeah. Smash you. Kill.
哎，这是没鞋子。
Get on
哎
with
有
it.
哎，
Let go.
啊，有灵气哦。
Let go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let go.
切，蹲地。
Okay. Let go. Okay. Yeah. Smash you. Let go. Okay. Let go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let go. Smash you. Yeah. Let go. Yeah.
复活。
Let go. Okay. Let go. Let go. Smash you. Let go. Yeah. Let go. Yeah.
800滴血。
Get on with it. Let go. Okay. Huh? Yeah. Get on with it. What you looking at? Get on with it. Huh? Ah.
哎，那他死人了。 诶，那哪个这个？
Get on with it. Okay. Right, go. Okay. Right, go. Yeah. Right, go. Yeah. Right, go. Yeah. Right, go.
我到下路了。
Right, go. What you looking at? Yeah. Right, go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right, go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right, go. Yeah. What you smash me. Okay. Okay. Right, go.
哦，有会飞的。 会死嘞！死了。
Slaughtering time. Okay. Yeah. Right, go. Get on with it. What you look for? Get on with it. Right, go. What you looking at?
哦，没人顾家，好吧。
Right, go. Okay. Right, go. Okay. Right, go. Right, go. Okay. Yeah. Right, go. Smash you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right, go. Okay. Right, go. Okay. Right, go. Okay. I go. Yeah.
不行，2个。
I go. Okay. Yeah. I go. Yeah. Okay. I go. Okay. Kill. I go.
哎，这么多。 来啊！有个头啊！
I go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I go. Okay.
来个 ，OK。
Okay. Yeah. I go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I go. Okay. Yeah. I go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I go. Get on with it. Huh? Yeah. I go. Yeah. Okay. I go. Yeah.
好，我们复活，收头。哎、啊，你不敢上哦，大哥，一滴血，你不敢。2700多。
It's slaughtering time. Okay. Get on with it. Excellent.
兄弟戏强，完了。 有演。
I go. Okay. Huh? I go. Yeah. Okay. Huh? Okay. I go. I go. Yeah. I go. I go. I go. Yeah. I go. Yeah. I go.
没中，有点尴尬。
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I go. I go. Get on with it.
CD 好了没？还没，差5秒。巫术人。
It's slaughtering. Okay. Get on with it. Okay.
OK， 这只眉目。
I go. Yeah. I go. Okay. Yeah. I go. Yeah. I go. Okay. Yeah. I go. Yeah. I go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What you looking at?
吃掉了。
I go. Yeah. I go. Yeah. I go. Get on with it. Yeah. I go. Okay.
OK， 复活。
Yeah. I go. Yeah. I go. Yeah. 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 I go. Okay. Okay. I go. Yeah. Okay. I go. Ah. Okay. I go. Yeah. Yeah.
给我跳，给我跳。
Yeah. I go. Yeah. Okay. I go. Okay.
走。好，现在看他们表演。Double kill。
Okay. I go. Okay. I go. Yeah. I go. Get on with it. Yeah.
570，有点不太够用。
I go. Okay. What you looking at? Yeah. I go. Yeah. Okay.
你是不是看错人了？那个是6叉 D 那一台的，我没有在分析柯文哲。
Yeah. I go. Okay. I go.
复活好了没？哎，还没。1500，被刀。
What you looking at? Yeah.
哇，这个不孝子啊！还推刀哎！哦，撑住了，撑住了！快！哎，靠过去，靠去！嘿，对，就这样。 不够。哦，可以哦。玩这么大。 750。
Get on with it. What are you looking at? Get on with it.
看一下。
Okay. Let go. Yeah. Let go. Yeah. Let go. Let go. Let go. He smashed you. Let go. Yeah. Let go.
回到75就行了。OK。
Let go. Yeah.
哇，大家都自缺啊。
Let go. Let go. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let go. Yeah. Okay. Let go. Okay.
哎，不行了，这波打不动了。
Let go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let go. That's the
复活。蹦蹦蹦蹦蹦。
Let go. Let go. Okay. I go. Okay. Yeah. I go. Yeah. I go. Get on with it. Okay. I go. Yeah. I go. Okay.
这个没人吃。
Yeah. Okay. I go. Okay. I go. Yeah. I go. Yeah. I go. Yeah. Okay. I go. Okay. Yeah. I go. Yeah. I go. He smashed you.
他们跑得有点快，都没我了。 哎，巫术有没有？
I go. Yeah. Okay. He smashed you. I go. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I go.
Tschüss. 哎，啊你怎么放他那个？ 哦，好猛！哦，睡觉睡觉。